Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast number 389, recorded live Wednesday, May 16th, 2018. For production notes, everything, I think we're all caught up. Everything got out on time. Next week, though, is the SharePoint conference. We'll talk more about that later, but our times and everything are going to be all funky next week because SPC. So we're recording on Wednesday, but it's Wednesday afternoon. So that's late, but then we're doing another one Monday after the keynote. So that's early. Yeah.
The good news is that most people, get this off of their magical feed, so they won't really even care that we do it. There'll just be a bonus episode next week that is a breakdown of the keynote from SharePoint conference. So you win. Yeah,
and the other thing is I always produce this on my desktop machine here, but obviously I'm not taking my desktop machine to Vegas, so I don't know how well I'll be able to render it all on my laptop because I don't have my tools and everything's not. But we'll see. So next week will be funky. I apologize ahead of time. But yeah, so you mentioned they get it through their feeds. We're now on TuneIn. Have you got it in your car yet? Does it show up in your car?
I haven't looked. Looking for a picture of you in my car is very, very off-putting.
Well, they're everywhere, so you don't even have to look. I'm sure you've got them pinned up all over, and yep, like that one.
You mean this one?
Aww. I've kept that shirt. I'll always have that shirt.
Always have Vegas. Oh, wait.
Yes, we'll always. That's something completely different. That's the doctor said that would go away, so I I shouldn't always have that. But we're on TuneIn, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play. If there's any other podcast places that we should go, let us know. Where else do you get podcasts? We'd love to get the show out there.
Very cool. Yeah, it's. I'm excited that we keep getting added to new places, and we haven't got any 0 ratings yet. So good job, us.
That you raise a good point. So if you're getting us from someplace like TuneIn or Google or iTunes, give us a rating. That's good. I honestly don't check those because I don't know how to. But I understand that helps the things roll up. I need to figure out. I created the iTunes account like 10 years ago, and I don't know if I know how to log into it or even where to log into it. But I should check that out.
Well, there you go.
Final production note, want to give a shout out to our friends at SysKit. They are the official sponsor of the podcast here. And I've been told that I ramble a little bit about them and how much I love them. So I'm trying to keep this short, but then I realize I have no way to tell how long I'm talking. So that won't work very well, but I'm going to try right now to do that. And so SysKit, the folks that bring us all SP.Kit and have for many years, are sponsoring the show. I love their stuff. And they just announced today that they've updated and released a new version of their security manager tool. So obviously it does security stuff. It allows you to compare permissions between, points in time, people, these kind of things, track external sharing, and then export all of these things into reports so you can massage them and make them look good for your boss. So go to syskit.com and check that out. And, if you're curious about it, but you don't know whether it's a good thing for you, the best thing is they got a 30-day trial. So download it, see what you like. Paul in the chat room is telling me that device that I would have to keep myself at 30 seconds is called a watch. Shane, remember earlier before the show, you were threatening to kick Paul. Go ahead and do that now.
Got it.
Let's make that happen.
So the good news is that promo was only 55 seconds. So you've brought it down a little bit. And I'm glad everybody can really appreciate this, right? This happens to me on stage with Todd a lot as well. It's like, I'm like, hey, Todd, we're running out of time. We need to go faster. And then he'll stop, and for 5 minutes, he'll talk about and tell a story about how at the time we ran out of time. And I'm like, that was the opposite of helping with the current problem that we have. So
that has probably actually happened. Telling a story about running out of time when we're running out of time. That is a very real us thing.
It absolutely is, right? So we switched to Micro Machine Guy voice and like you just all right, and we're done. Thanks.
Yep, that's the struggle is real. I have nothing to say.
All right. Well, so speaking of the struggle, I hear that one of your major life struggles is over, and I didn't want to talk about it, but I knew that you were going to do it anyway, so I just made it bullet point A. Let's get it out of the way. Todd, what are you doing on Friday?
Well, I can't do it on Friday, which stinks, but I'm going on Saturday to the new Deadpool movie. Deadpool 2 finally comes out this Friday, and so I don't get to see it till Saturday because of things. So Friday, I don't know if we talked about this last week. I'm emceeing a talent show at my kid's school, so that's what I'm doing Friday night. But Saturday, we're gonna do it.
I just assumed you were going during the workday on Friday or going at midnight on Friday. I just assumed one way or another Todd Clint would be there on Friday.
Well, these are all very good ideas, and I'm taking the lovely Mrs. Clint with me, and so that. But I could go ahead of time. I could pregame, like an appetizer before the main course. I like the way you think, Shane. That's good.
Yeah, well, and at midnight, you're probably the other people who like to, do things in the parking lot before they go in to see the movie, so you can, get the full experience. Talk about how much you love snow.
Yeah, and I did wear my Deadpool shirt. I don't know if we'll be able to see it very well.
Especially those of you only listening on the audio. I'm doubting you can see it at all.
Yeah, so you have to stare very closely at your radio if you want to see this. But the shirt is a Deadpool shirt, and it says, "Always be yourself, unless you can be Deadpool. Then always be Deadpool." It's a good rule for life. So yeah, I like that. Deadpool came out. He was on Colbert's show last night. He did part of Colbert's monologue. It was very very good.
Yeah, he's had a lot of fun with the commercials. Right, there's the David Beckham one I watched the other day. Yeah. He enjoys making the commercials, I think, as much as he enjoys making the movies.
Yeah, and I haven't checked this time, but there's a great YouTube channel called Honest Trailers where these two guys mock movie trailers, yep. And it's just hysterical. So I watched a bunch of those. The one for Frozen was great, and a bunch of those. But then when they did the Honest trailer for Deadpool, the first movie, Deadpool crashed his own Honest trailer, and I'm like, this is Ryan Reynolds. I mean, this is just like his dream come true.
Yeah, he's just belligerent about it, right? Like, nope, I'm going to go and have some fun promoting this guy. He probably wears the suit to the bar, right? He's like, it's Thursday night, guys. What do you want to do? I think I'll put on my outfit. We'll go to the bar and just see what I do.
I would. So I don't wear, so I know you've got some funny onesie pajamas that you wear for like, I would love to have like the Deadpool one. I would probably wear that all over. Yeah.
Oh, we should see about making those for you.
It's probably out there. I've not looked. Probably out. I would hate to see what would happen if I found one.
Yeah. And so continuing our podcast, it's apparently about pop culture instead of technology. Last week talking about technology, you told me that I should watch The Ranch on Netflix, and
mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I think because I was afraid you'd show up at my house and actually make me watch it if I didn't watch it. So I went ahead and gave it a try, and it's not a bad little show. We've binged it pretty good. We're into season 2 already.
Yep.
I don't know. I really struggled, and I can see how someone who didn't have, the threat of Todd showing up at their house might not get through it, because in the beginning, they get real heavy at times, and they're super funny, but then they're mm-hmm. heavy again. I don't know what to make of it sometimes.
Yeah, so that's a funny thing, because I have recommended many things to Shane over the years, and he never watches them.
Nope.
And so on multiple occasions, I have gone to Amazon, bought the DVD for the thing that I've told him to watch, and then shipped it to his house so he would watch it. That's been the only way I've been able to get it done. And so when I recommended The Ranch to him last week, I thought, well, I can't do this because it's Netflix, it's streaming only. I can't ship this to his house, so I don't know how I'll do this. And it's the one time he actually watched it. So that's been funny. So yeah, the Ranch has been on Netflix forever. They do a great job with their original content now is amazing. And I'd seen it, but never really want to watch it because it kind of sounded, I don't know, it wasn't just not interesting to me. But then Ashton Kutcher was on Dax Shepard's podcast here a while back, and I heard him talking about it. And I'm like, I'd give it a shot. It sounds interesting. And it is just absolutely funny. And it's like a sitcom, but they can drop the F-bomb. It's good times.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? I think the other thing that blows my mind. So Bo, the dad,
mm-hmm.
He was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Tombstone, right?
Yes.
And that came out literally, not exaggerating, 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like 96 or something. I'm pretty sure it was, so 22 years ago. I think I'm almost positive it was 96. And he looks and sound, he hasn't changed in 22 years. I literally don't understand it.
Yeah, so Tombstone may be the best Western ever. I've watched that movie in the last year just because I've watched it multiple times in the last year. A great movie. The other great one that he's in is Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. a little less value than Tombstone, but again, excellent movie. But yeah, he is Sam Elliott, and he nails that role of the crotchety old dad. Like, he just nails it so hard. And you can tell, like, he's enjoying himself playing that role. He's enjoying being the angry curmudgeon, but not too much so it doesn't feel authentic that he's angry. Yeah, great role for him.
Yeah, they do such a good job of kind of incorporating the random technology blurbs and stuff on this ranch in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, hey, you're making fun of my Netflix. Wait, you guys are Netflix. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's very meta in that regard. So yeah, it's a great show. If you've already got Netflix, they're easy. They're half-hour episodes. I think there's 10 or 12 per season. Really easy to consume. Just a lot of fun. It's a good time.
There you go. All right, I guess now we can talk about tech, but I don't know. I like pop culture. We should just talk about what we want to talk about.
We should have a spin-off podcast. Since we can't do the after hours one, we could do Shane and Todd do pop culture.
There you go. And if only like 2 million other people didn't already have that exact podcast.
They're not nearly as funny or good looking as us, though. That's the thing.
Even with my poofy hair?
You I wasn't gonna say anything, but since you brought it up. So one of the things in the tech world that's come out in the last week, last Tuesday was Patch Tuesday, everybody's favorite Tuesday of the month. And so there's always fallout from that. And one of the fallout things that has come out now is there was an update to RDP that closed a security hole. The problem becomes if you put that patch only on your client, your RDP client, so that means like from Windows, mstsc.exe, if the patch is only on the client but not on the server, you now can't connect to the server. So basically the client, there was an insecure way to communicate, and when you patch the client, it will no longer connect on that insecure method. But if the server has not also been patched, so it can, then you can't get in. And so whenever something happens to your server, you need to install something. What do? You RDP in. And so there's some chicken and the egg things with that. There's some way around it, but it's the March 2018 Security Bulletin. The official title is CVE 2018-0886.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, they've committed that to memory. And basically what happens is when you try to RDP into a server, what you've already been able to RDP into, now it tells you an authentication error has occurred. So update your servers.
I mean, security has gotten so complicated, right? Mm-hmm. It used to be we were worried about, just passwords and, making, an SSL certificate and a strong password. Life was grand. I mean, I don't even pretend to understand security anymore. When you start worrying about things like the CRED SSP encryption for Oracle remediation, I'm like, okay, thanks for telling me to patch it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and so this is one of those things where you got to patch your stuff, especially security things. And if you're judicious and don't patch your servers right away because you're waiting to see what the problems are, well, this time it bites you. But just make sure you get those on there. And I've seen a bunch of people who've had problems with Azure VMs. Apparently, they didn't get all the patches out to Azure, and yeah. So Mark in the chat room is talking about security. It's all complication on top of complexity. Well, yes. And the other thing is with security, a lot of companies, Microsoft, Google, wherever, understandably don't give a lot of details because they don't want to give the bad guys any information. So for us good guys, it's tough to troubleshoot and figure out because, Do you want to talk about your other security thing?
Yeah. So I found it interesting. One of the things that I'm a big fan of, I think we all are, right, is this two-factor authentication. I go to log into my QuickBooks Online. It says, hey, I don't really remember who you are. Here's a code. I'll text to your phone. Put the code in. Life moves on. You're like, okay.
Yep.
And to me, I'm like, who could ever break that, right? That is so secure.
Yep. Bad guys, we have won. The game is over. You have to go get good jobs now.
Yep. Well, so one of the people I follow on Twitter is good old Kevin Mitnick, which I realize old people like us know who that is. I'm not sure the kids these days do.
Give him a quick overview of Kevin Mitnick.
Right, so Kevin was the original hacker. I mean, and he was, I guess, what do they call it? There was a different word for it. It wasn't a
freaker.
Freaker, yeah.
Yeah.
So Kevin was one of those first people who pioneered all the ways you could take advantage of payphones, right? Was the noises and all that of putting coins in. And so he was like the original super hacker that ended up getting sent to prison for a whole bunch in the 90s.
Yep.
He got out. They're like, you're not allowed to touch computers for 5 years or whatever. So he didn't touch computers for a while. But now he's allowed to touch computers again. And so he's kind of gotten into this good guy role, supposedly. Who knows? He's probably a super villain. He's Lex Luthor. So anyway.
Let me jump in a bit about Kevin.
Yeah.
So I think he wasn't the guy that did the long distance payphone thing. That was another guy, Captain Crunch, I think. But Kevin Mitnick was about networks, breaking into phone company networks, but the network side, not so much the whatever. And one of his big things is social engineering, which which goes into your thing. So he was super technically smart, but also understood the human brain and was able to figure out ways to get things he couldn't get technically. So yeah, go in and explain the thing there.
Yeah. So super nerd with people skills, right? Which always makes you dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So he tweeted out from one of his followers that she had been a victim of a two-factor authentication social engineering hack. And so what happened was somebody was trying to break into this person's account, and they caused the two-factor code to be generated, and they just texted her and said, "Hey, I used to have your phone number. I'm locked out of my account where I got all my kids' pictures. Can you just send me the code that I just had sent to you so I can get in and get my kids' pictures off, Google or something like that?" And being a helpful, nice person who felt bad for someone losing their pictures, here's the code that I just got on my phone. She just straight up gave up her own two-factor code, never even thought twice about it.
Yep. So a couple things about that. I read up on that. Most two-factor things won't tell you the number for that reason. So I know Microsoft's will say they will show you the number and then they will blank it all out except for the last digit or the last two digits. So you can't do that thing right there. But the other thing is I saw a thing, 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, about two-factor auth. Because I'm with you. When two-factor auth came out, I'm like, game, set, and match, bad guys. It's been a good run, but we got you. Sorry. But I saw some hacker showing how it was very easy to get around two-factor auth. And he had a program, and he was, I can't remember how it is. He sent a link to something inside of an email, and the machine, whoever it was, clicked whatever the thing was, and the payload could have been a web page or whatever. But it basically went back to his machine. It got him a little wedge inside, and then he had a list of all the exploits that OS was known for, so that he could really get in and do the business. But one of the things that he did was he was able to jump on processes like Internet Explorer and Chrome. And so somebody jumped into Yahoo and they had two-factor auth. Haha, bad guys can't get in. But then they got the two-factor auth on their phone. They authenticated in the browser with their second factor. And since he was jumped onto that thread, as soon as they authenticated, his malicious process was authenticated and was able to go and do whatever. And that was bad. So in the chat room, they're talking about a bunch of the stuff. So Kevin Mitnick wrote a book called Takedown, which was a bunch about his hacking, or maybe he didn't write that one. So there was one that he wrote, but then there was another one. The thing that took Kevin down, because Kevin is incredibly smart and incredibly talented, was he hacked into a security guy's computer. And he hacked into a security guy's computer who had a very strong sense of vengeance and anger. And basically this computer guy quit his day job and dedicated his life to tracking down whoever it was that hacked into his system. And it was Kevin Mitnick. And that's how Kevin got caught. So he poked the wrong bear there. But that was a book called Takedown and a movie called Takedown. The movie has Skeet Ulrich in it, and it's kind of a dramatized version of that story. But Mitnick has a book out too. I've read them both. Very interesting, especially for nerds like us to just see the different things they did and see the tech from 30 years ago when they were doing all this. But Mitnick, he's one of the superstars of the hacking world. Kevin Paulson's the other one. Kevin Mitnick, just great stuff. Great nerd lore.
Yeah, and now I feel really bad that I confused his story with the other guy's story because these used to be my heroes, and I've gotten old and don't remember.
I'm pretty sure Captain Crunch was the guy that figured. So that's the whole 2600. That was the frequency that you whistle, you blew it, and it gave you free long distance from payphones. I think Mitnick, I think he hacked into the phone switches and then was able to give his own phone number or whatever. And yeah, it's good stuff. Oh, security. So back to tech stuff. There we are in that pop culture stuff again. So yesterday, Microsoft unveiled some amazing, cool new technology that they don't have out yet, but will be out here next year. They announced the Surface Hub 2. So I don't know how many of you have had a chance to play with the original Surface Hub. And that is just a massive touchscreen computer, specialized Windows software, great for video conferences and boardrooms. You can write on it and do all kinds of things. Just amazing. And the monitor's huge. It's like looking out a window. But they've got an update that coming out for that, the Surface Hub 2. The screens will be 50 inches each. with 4K or greater resolution and the 3:2 aspect ratio. So for a while, phones and that were 16:9, but Microsoft has had the Surface tablets always be 3:2, which is a little off. But they seem to be sticking to that. They've kind of decided that that's the thing that they want for video conferencing and things like that. One of the cool things that the Surface Hub 2 will do is it will rotate on the wall. So if you've got it in portrait mode and you're doing some stuff and you need to switch to landscape, you can just pick the thing and twist it on the wall. And they showed a demo of it, and like all the windows twisted inside so they stayed oriented correctly the whole time. Another cool thing you can do is you can line 4 of them up together so that they all stitch together and make one big picture. Just amazing. So the original Surface Hub, those things are like $8,000 or $9,000 a piece, which is why I don't have any in my office. So I don't know if the 2019 ones where they will come in. But what I will say, though, is for any of you that have Surface Hubs and are going to get the Surface Hub 2, I will take your old Surface Hub. To free up some space for you, make it that much easier for you, I will take it. We'll put it in my office. It'll be great. Very cool technology.
I mean, the Surface line as a whole has just been awesome, right? I mean, so the little surfaces, these big surfaces, it's the price point. That's always been the challenge, right? The price is just getting them down to where, like you said, I can just put one back there and be like, haha, I have one now.
I would argue that the Surface vision was good. The execution has been bad. When you got your Surface Pro 4, there were a lot of video problems with that. And I saw here just a week or two ago that Microsoft is having to replace a bunch of those because they're bad. They could just never get the video fixed on them. The Surface Books, when they came out, they had hibernation problems and video problems.
They had growing pains with the hardware, right? They blamed Intel for almost all of them. But I mean, I don't know. My Surface, I've had one of each. And so my Surface Pro 4, it's rock solid now. I don't have any complaints. It did take a few months of firmware drivers to get it all straight. So there was a rough patch, but
yeah, and that rough patch, that'll happen. But when you're forking out that many $1,000 for a tablet that will work good in 8 months, that's a tough sell. But I agree that it's good that Microsoft has that Premier line, and these Surface Hub 2s look amazing. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's when we get one, right? You just get one, put it on that back wall instead of that piece of paper with an X, and we'll be all set.
This monitor, I'll put that monitor up so we get some art. So another story, and I think that last one, Throt.com has a good article about the Surface Hub 2. And then another story, and I don't remember if this was from Throt or from somebody else, and I hit the wrong button there, that Microsoft, apparently this is from Throt as well. This is just a report. It hasn't been released. It might all be complete crap, but it looks like Microsoft is thinking about coming out with a low-cost Surface tablet later this year. So that's funny that it addresses the exact issue you were talking about. How about they're too expensive?
Yeah. So
the leak, and again, this is unconfirmed, probably bogus, that this Surface tablet will come out. It will be in the $400 range. It will have USB-C connection, so it will charge with USB-C, and that's how all the things will attach. It's going to have a 10-inch screen, 9.5 hours of battery life. We'll have LTE built in, which is kind of nice. The built-in storage will be 64 or 128 gig. So that kind of addresses the concerns that you were talking about, the expense and all that. So your Surface Pro 4 is a 12-inch screen. Is that correct?
12,
I think
13, 11.
Yeah.
I don't know. They kept changing.
Yeah, so this 10 is just a little bit smaller, like the original Surfaces. Yep. But the funny thing is, I was reading this story. This is going to come out later this year if it comes out at all. I realize I almost have that device now. I've got this Insignia 10-inch tablet, running Windows 10, charged with USB-C. This one has a keyboard that attaches. It doesn't have the kickstand, which I kind of prefer, the keyboard. But in this thing's got USB ports and a real keyboard and touchpad. This thing, the specs are a little lower because it's a little older. It's only got 32 gig of storage instead of 64. But it was like $150, $200. Yeah. Now, it doesn't have the polish and the fit and the finish that the Surface will undoubtedly have. But I don't know.
Yeah, and I wonder, if I remember correctly, right, there's a whole bunch of licensing considerations at like 10.1 inches, right? I think 10.1 is their kind of barrier for like the version of Office you can run and different things like that. So I'm certain it's just funny to see them, start to build at the very top of that the bar that they set around what they can do from licensing. So
so before that used to be, and it's probably changed, but yeah, you're right. There was for manufacturers, they could license Windows cheaply depending on the size of the screen. So essentially, Microsoft was saying if this is a tablet device, you pay, X, but if it's a laptop device, you pay 2X or 3X. And that was right around 8, 9, 10 inches, somewhere around there. And then the other thing was if it was a small device, the manufacturer could put on Office for free, but if it was a big device, they couldn't. So yeah, I'm curious where that was the Windows 8 timeframe. I don't know where those numbers are at now.
Yeah, I definitely am not an expert.
But I'll be curious to see that. I've got this little 10-inch thing. With only having 2 gig of RAM, it's pretty slow. And I will be honest, updating it every time the Windows 10 updates come out, I have a tough time freeing up enough space for all of that. I have to do this dance with USB drives and all that. But for little stuff, it's good. And for watching videos on a plane when I'm flying, it's good. So if this $400 one comes out from Microsoft and it's decent, we'll see.
Yeah, we have a lot of those same update problems with my kids' iPads, right? Because they're chock full. They're only like 32 gig hard drives. And yeah, a patch comes out, you got to delete 7 games, and you got to listen to the whining. And
yeah,
small hard drives are muy bad.
Yeah, and so I've got one tablet that has a small drive. And again, I knew what I was getting into when I bought this thing. But I can't get it won't do the patch on an SD card. And I can't free up enough space on the C drive, and it won't see the SD card, and I can't upgrade it. It's kind of a pain.
I'm with you.
Look, so what? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it looks like our friends at Roku, they had some update pains yesterday. Yeah. Also, I don't know, were you affected by it? Did you get bit?
I was not. So we talk about cord cutting a lot in this podcast, so we threw this one in. Yesterday, Roku devices, and not all of them and not everywhere, had a little bit of problem. They were updating some stuff in the back end, and I didn't even begin to understand how this worked, but apparently they have some kind of anti-piracy stuff where they can detect pirated content, which struck me as odd because there's normally not local content on the Roku. I mean, you can get devices that have SD cards in them, but I never understood that. But apparently yesterday, for a little while, some customers, instead of opening up the app they were trying to open up on Roku, they got an FBI warning telling them to stop stealing crap and that they were going to go to jail forever. But they weren't doing anything wrong. But the worst part about this was it wasn't some crazy app like the free Tic-Tac-Toe app or anything like that. It was a couple of little apps. Maybe you've heard of them. Netflix and YouTube. So I don't know what percentage of Roku users, what percentage of their time they spend in the Netflix or YouTube apps, but I'm guessing it's significant. And so I did not get hit by that yesterday. I don't know that I used either of those. I might have been on Plex. I don't remember. But that is just one of those things. As you're cord cutting and you're relying on all that stuff, this is one of those ways that they can get you.
Yeah, I'm guessing, right, that they probably don't purposely ever show that FBI message, but it's probably one of the contingencies of the DCMA. You have to have the ability to tell people.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah,
it's probably complete shenanigans. It's even there. That's probably why they had to update something on it. They didn't really bother testing it because they never actually use it. And I'm guessing the story's something to that effect, and it's BS DCMA lobbyists who have gotten their way.
Yeah, that's probably true. But when we cut the cord a little over a year ago, and I was debating between Amazon Fire devices and Roku's, and I'm almost completely Roku everywhere now. It is my weapon of choice when it comes to cord cutting. So I hope they do well, and I hope they get this figured out. But yeah, that was just little apps, Netflix, YouTube. It's,
Yeah, I was watching the Eastern Conference NBA Finals, and at some point during the show. So that was on ESPN being streamed via PlayStation View. It got real choppy for like 2 minutes during the commercials, thankfully. And so at some point, they just rebooted and went back to before the choppiness had and started playing again. So I don't know if that was an ESPN issue, a PlayStation View issue, a Roku issue, my internet provider, but it was really interesting. This is not live TV because I know that you just rebooted. It was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you see that stuff. It's worked mostly well for us. The problem we have is live TV over the web or over the air because I've started buying these Vizio TVs and they just happen to not have analog tuners, and that's That's been the toughest part for us. But I'm still good with cord cutting.
Yep.
And when I was thinking about this, I'm like, oh man, now we got another thing to worry about. But then I was thinking, this has always been the case. Cable goes out all the time, and everybody complains about their cable companies. Satellite goes out, and people complain about that. And so it's just as the technology changes, the way that it disappoints us evolves with the times.
Yep, I completely agree. All right, so looks like one more tech topic here. You were having some problems leaving your guest tenants?
Well, I was not. I would never leave. But one of the technologies that I've kind of embraced is Azure Active Directory.
Yep.
And one of the things with Azure Active Directory is their B2B service or business to business. And this is the ability for, I've got my consulting company and my tenant, and you've got your tenant. And it's the ability for me to add people from your business to my business without me having to worry about your passwords and policies and all that kind of stuff.
Got it.
One of the problems with that was once I added you, you couldn't leave. I had to kick you out. It was like the Hotel California. And that, I'm sure when Microsoft was speccing things out, the whole, you've got $1 to spend. What do you spend it on? Making two-factor auth good or making the person be able to leave. I understand the priorities of it, but it was kind of a pain for people like you and I that are consultants who get connected to a bunch of different tenants. Once you get done with a project, if the other person doesn't remember to kick you out, you just get stuck. And there's a limit to the number of those connections that you can have. You can only have 23 or something like that. So this started becoming a big deal. But then this week, there was a bunch of announcements about stuff that has been updated for Azure Active Directory. And this is one of these things now. You can go into your app settings and remove yourself, lead yourself to the door, and leave another person's tenant, which was a good addition to the service.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with the blog post. These are exciting improvements.
Well, there's multiple improvements in that blog post, so this might not be the exciting one.
No, it reminds me of a conversation I was having with my wife yesterday about, news and stuff. I don't remember what brought it up, but I said something about Business Insider. She's like, yeah, I don't go there anymore. It's all 100% clickbait. I'm like, you were right. Those guys have not written a headline in years. It wasn't just as clickbaity could be. I guess I've just become immune to it. So I don't know.
I share her frustration. I used to like Business Insider a lot, and they have gotten cruddy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's a quest to make money, right? Some point someone said, hey, we should be profitable now. And so half their content is paid one way or another, under the table or over the table, but it's paid for. And I still go on a regular basis, but yeah, it's definitely went downhill.
Yeah. And that's one of those things. I think information news has always had to have some element of entertainment to it so that people would listen. And I mean forever. I mean for 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. But I definitely feel like within the last 10 years or so, and really what I blame, and I feel like an old man, is I blame CNN. I blame the invention of the 24-hour news cycle is what really threw all this off, because they had to really make news entertaining to keep people watching all hours of the day. They really super had to try hard. And I think that's what got us where we're at now.
You missed a chance to say, get off my lawn.
Yeah, Ted Turner, get off my lawn. Back to the Azure AD thing. One thing that I did think about this was this ability to remove yourself from something. I kind of wonder if this isn't because of GDPR. I don't wonder if this wasn't moved up the priority stack because of GDPR here in 9 days, becoming the law of another land, which for us is that way, because this ability that you have to be able to be forgotten and remove all of your stuff. And I wonder if this is part of that. So we cuss GDPR a lot, but maybe it wasn't a bad thing this time.
Nope, I'm still sticking with cussing GDPR. I keep talking to small businesses about it. I'm like, yeah, the only thing I can really tell you at this point is you should just stop doing business with Europe. There's no other responsible decision a small business can make right now.
Yeah. And Chris Webb in the chat room thinks that teams probably played a big part in it also because you can't leave a team, or you couldn't leave a team that you were invited to. I have not tried to leave a team yet. I don't use Teams a lot because of some other issues, but I am a member of several teams, so I should try that, see if I can leave them.
Can we be honest? I have never used Teams, not a single time. Shh, don't tell anybody.
I have. I want to like it, but it's got some clumsy aspects to it that are just painful.
Yeah, I haven't. I just haven't. It just hasn't come up. I'm not avoiding it on purpose at this point, but I just literally have. Now that you say that, I've never actually logged into a Teams environment. I don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah. We can do it sometime. I've got one. I can invite you.
Aw.
I would do that. All right. So tell me about the universe, Shane.
Oh, goodness. So this is one of those articles, you follow a bunch of people on Twitter. Sometimes at night I get bored. I've played all my energy on my video games, so I got to wait on my recharges to happen. So I'm just strolling through stuff. And I read this fascinating article about, it was way smarter than I was capable of being, but how the universe, we can only see so far out into the universe, right? Because the speed of light and how many years this planet's been here since, the Big Bang happened, right? We're not going to get into any of that stuff, but this whole concept that, we can only see, what is it, like 12 billion light years out or something. And so it was talking about how, the universe is expanding, right? And I'd understood that before because at some point in billions of years, in theory, everything will just expand and we'll all be gone.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But out on the edges, it's expanding faster than here. We think we're the center of the universe always. Duh.
Well, it's Iowa. It's here. You're close to the center of the universe.
That's good. I mean, in light year terms, I'm real close. But so out there, the edges of the universe have started to expand faster than the speed of light. So we could never, in our current understanding of physics, see or achieve or get there, right? Even if we built a spaceship now that could almost travel at the speed of light, we could now no longer even get to them because they're, I don't know. It was, he broke it down and made it sound so simple, but it was just blowing my mind trying to, because once again, we're the center of the universe, like you said, Iowa's the center. I'm real close to it.
Yep.
So this idea that there's something that is 14.6 billion light years away and moving away further, and no matter what, I could never get to it now. I don't know. I just don't understand.
Your little pea brain can't make that work. It is funny. We've talked about before how the speed of light is a legitimate tech barrier now. And that is very crazy. And it reminds me, I don't know if you saw the movie a couple of years ago, Passengers, with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. Did you see that one?
Mm-mm.
So it was they were on a ship that was traveling to like an Earth 2 sort of place.
Okay.
And they were all put in some kind of hibernation thing because, can't travel faster than the speed of light. And an event woke Chris Pratt up. And so he's got, they're halfway to this place. And it was funny because, he is not an astronaut. He was just a passenger. He was just, a plumber or something. I forget what his occupation was, not qualified to deal with this situation at all. And so he gets onto the computer. He's like, hey, I need to report a problem here. We got this thing going on. And they're like, okay, well, it's going to take, 9 years for that message to get back to Earth. And then you're traveling, button up against the speed of light. It'll be 18 years after that when the response will get back to you. And so you're like, it's going to be, 30 some years before, but that's the legitimate barriers that we've got. And yeah, so in the chat room, people are talking about that. Passengers was a much better movie than I expected. It was not the movie that the trailers made me think that it was. It was a very, very good movie.
Yeah,
But
so I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that occasionally reads that type of stuff, but I'll read it just to understand how much I am incapable of understanding. Right? You just can't fathom how big.
Yep.
I don't know.
So the chat room has a couple of suggestions. Number one, Dan Christian is suggesting you should watch Lost in Space in Netflix. That would probably and Mark is suggesting we have Neil deGrasse Tyson on to explain some of these things.
Well, I mean, Neil's a big fan of the show, so I imagine he'd
clearly
asked him.
Clearly. And then I don't know if you guys listen to him. He's an astronomer, I believe, physicist. I forget what I embarrass myself by not knowing. But much like Mitnick being a technically smart computer guy with some personal skills, Neil deGrasse Tyson is an incredibly smart physicist or astronomer with great people skills. And that combination has just exploded. And he is just hilarious, just great.
Yeah, he's one of those people that I consider he's famous for being famous at this point.
At this point, maybe. If you look at any of his stuff, I have now I have two, but I had one really great Neil deGrasse Tyson story that he told himself, very self-deprecating. He was he's super smart, and he's got a bunch of people telling him he's super smart. So he believes his own press a little too much. So when the movie Titanic came out, he was watching it like we all did, and he loved it like we all did. But they're showing the shipwreck. And we know exactly the day, exactly the time when all that happened. But him being the guy that he is, he's like, the stars are all wrong. Like that constellation wouldn't be there, and that wouldn't be there. So of course, being the guy who's as smart as he thinks he is, he's telling everybody this, like, I can't believe, Cameron did this, they just, why did he even try, and all that. And he tells the story a bunch of times. And then a couple of years later, he ends up at some celebrity lunch or something, and he's sitting at James Cameron's table. and so now is the time for Neil deGrasse Tyson to show everybody just how smart he is. So he tells this story to James Cameron, and the way Tyson tells the story is hilarious. Cameron is quiet the whole time, listened to the whole thing, and said, well, at last count, Titanic had brought in a little over $1 billion. Just think how much more successful we'd have been if we'd have gotten the stars right. And it's like, oh, just completely. And there's nothing. No. So that story is 15 years old. I don't know how old that story is, but the movie came out. I forget the name of it now. The Ted Kennedy story about the car wreck, Chappaquiddick, I think, something like that. So Tyson had a thing here a couple of weeks ago. It's like, I like Chappaquiddick. Would have been better if they'd have gotten the stars right. We know exactly what time the car went in. But yeah, if you have a chance, find that Neil deGrasse Tyson where he tells the James Cameron story. It is a blast. So funny.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, so speaking of awesome things you can also watch on the internet, I made you another PowerApps video, Todd, because I know you are trying to learn.
I do like me a good PowerApps video here and there.
So in this one I covered how to do custom SharePoint list forms with PowerApps, right? So one of the cool things with PowerApps that you probably all have seen in your SharePoint Online modern list is you can customize that list form with PowerApps, make a custom Power App, do some cool things, add some flair to it. So I did the intro video on that this week, and so far I have not been booed off the internet, so I think I did okay.
Yep. And you've found a lot of these little nuggets that people love to learn about PowerApps, and so I applaud you for that. And if you're out there watching Shane's videos, I got to work with Shane a lot, and his ego can get out of hand sometimes, and I suffer for that. But if you do like his videos, give him thumbs ups and all that, because that helps that content bubble up, and it helps let him know what things he should be covering. Yeah. So that's good stuff. And I think we told the story a couple weeks ago. One of my friends had a problem, and in my head, it immediately became a Power App was a solution. So it's good stuff.
Have you heard back? Is he buying in?
I talked to him a little bit. He was waiting to find out. I can't remember if we set the whole story here on the podcast, but he's waiting to find out if his new employer is going to buy the commercial product that will do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's and videos like that are always fun, right? Because they give me a foundation. So I covered all the basics, the core. So because in my head I've got these really complicated videos to make around that topic, and so now in the complicated video, we can just do the hard stuff and be like, hey, if you don't know the easy part, go look over here. So I always enjoy getting those foundational videos out, and they also get the most views, but they lay the groundwork so I can do this fun stuff I want to do.
Yeah, and there'll always be more beginners than everybody else.
Yes.
Always. That audience will always be the biggest no matter what. So
yeah. And then the other thing I'm doing with PowerApps right now, I guess I can tell you guys, I'll tell you anyway, is so Microsoft's got some PowerApps training courses out there online today, and so I just started my project where I am going to rewrite those and re-record those. And so the next wave of Microsoft Power Apps training will feature my pretty face. Oh.
Are you going to be borrowing a face from somebody else? Like Chewie? Is Chewie going to let you borrow his face for a while?
I thought I'd just do the Deadpool thing, wear a mask the whole time.
That would be so awesome. Yeah. That would be great. That's good stuff. And I think Microsoft, and I'm doing stuff with the OneDrive team right now. They've realized that there is a great demand for this kind of training, and they realize they can't keep up on their own. So it's good that they're bringing some experts in, and you, to help with some of this training. Yeah.
Yeah, good old me. Yeah. And so Dan Christian's in the chat room, right? So he's a Power Apps and Flow MVP. And so he is saying, well, he's one of those people guilty of making the complicated videos. So Dan's stuff is just completely different than mine, right? Dan is a guy who makes these awesome videos. Like he has that one for, checking out all your Legos, and he builds these awesome flyout menus. And so I watch his videos to learn like cool things that Power Apps can do. And then I take those And I just go make the really simplified, getting started 101 version of his content. So we definitely need people like Dan. So I don't want Dan to be negative on himself there, right? We need people like Dan making that North Star. Hopefully he puts it in the right place so Neil doesn't get him. But, making that North Star so that people like me can make the really core basic stuff that helps people on their path to Daniel's story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. A lot of demand out there for that. So I'm glad to see you guys addressing it.
So, man, we're at 45 minutes. We probably should
wrap it up. So in the community corner, we've got SharePoint Saturday Montreal on June 2nd, SharePoint Saturday Charlotte, which Dan will be at on August 11th, and then SharePoint Saturday New England in October 20th in Massachusetts. Ooh. Those will all be good events. I wish I could go to all of them, but I can't go to any of them, unfortunately. I've got something going on every one of those days.
You got to watch Deadpool?
I got to get over and over and over. No, there's like June 2nd, I'm running a race. August 11th, my wife's birthday's the day before that. October 20th, I'm doing a thing. So yeah, it's bad timing. But definitely check those things out. And if you're having some kind of a community event, let us know. And for the right fee for a small amount of money, we'll talk about it on this show. So no, it's all free. We love to help out. For shameless self-promotion, man, in like 4 days, I fly to Vegas. And it's finally here. It's going to happen. SharePoint Conference, North America, starts on the 21st.
That is kind of daunting and scary that we have to think about that we are flying there very soon.
Crazy days indeed. Shane and I have a very full dance card, and I've got a blog post out there that talks about all of the places that you can see us. And let me find that URL. I should have put it in my notes. Go to www.toddclint.com/SPCNA2018. And it's got all of the things that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing the podcast after the keynote. We're doing a migration session on Monday. We'll be hanging out at the SharePoint, making butts of ourselves there. Tuesday, we're doing a session at 8:30 on SharePoint administration. I'm going to be hanging out at the SysKit booth. I hope that doesn't work against my time on the podcast here. 10:45. We'll be recording the podcast Tuesday afternoon. Then the attendee party. Everybody bring your Speedos for that. So just a lot of things going on. And then Thursday we're having our full day session.
Cool. Yeah, it's I'm overwhelmed at the amount of stuff we have to do for that. So we're just gonna say, and the good news is by the time you hear this, we'll probably have already done it. So it'll be the past, right? It's the whole universe expanding thing is going to catch up to us right here.
Yeah, and Mark Christmas asking whether the keynote and things will be live streamed. The keynote will be. I don't know about any of the sessions. And then Mark's next question is, how do I live stream it? I don't remember, but I think it's out there. If you can't find it, Mark, shoot me an email or a tweet or something, and I'll hook you up. But It's definitely out there.
And so it's called, the key thing to look for online is the SharePoint Virtual Summit.
Oh, yeah.
But not the SharePoint Virtual Summit they did last year. It's the SharePoint Virtual Summit they're doing this year. So I just pasted a link down there in the chat room.
I was just...
Scary looking link. I don't know what a .nxp file is, but whatever.
Oh, that's gonna hack stuff. Oh yeah.
Yep. So just don't respond to that. That was my says send you the 2-factor code. Don't send it over because.
Yep. They're trying to hack your stuff.
All right, and then we got SharePoint TechCon Boston, right? August 26th to 29th. That'll also be here faster than we know, but very exciting. I am doing an all-day PowerApps training. I am mostly certain that Todd Clint will be there to be my sidekick for that training.
I might do that. Bring you your teas and throw shoes at you here and there. I might join you up on stage, talk a little PowerApps,
and then go eat a fancy steak with me afterwards.
It's the only reason I'm going is that steak. Oh my God.
Can't wait. So SP TechCon Boston, though, right? It's a smaller, more intimate event, but it's I don't know. We've been going for a million years, so we really enjoy the event, and we think it's just because it's smaller, you get to actual interaction with people instead of, SharePoint North America. It's going to be in Vegas, unless you're playing craps with one of the speakers, you're probably not going to be able to find anyone. So,
yeah. Yep. So we will be there. I think Lori will be there. A bunch of people will be at SP TechCon and SharePoint Conference, both. So whichever side of the country you're on, whatever your budget is, whatever your timing is, there's a little something for everybody. So we hope to see you. And for goodness sakes, and all of these things, if you see Shane or I in person, do not be shy. Come up and introduce yourself. We would love to talk to you. We're pretty friendly guys. So come find us.
I think that's a wrap, right?
I think so. We're coming up against that 51-minute thing that we always hit. Chat room will be around for a while. Everybody else, we will see you next week, sort of. We'll try to tweet and all that and let y'all know what's going on, but it's going to be crazy at the SharePoint conference. But thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Toodles.